Okay, I'm completely cheating, and my video is late, and also it's not going to be edited. Whoops, I have stuff to do, and I had stuff to do yesterday. So cool, let's go right into it. Poetry. First, I'm going to talk about Howl by Allen Ginsberg, which is a poem that probably most people know, and it's just it's not very interesting. Like for this to be my favorite poem. It's not some weird obscure poem. It's pretty popular, but I love it. I have a very uh, not weird obsession. A lot of people are interested in the Beat Generation, but I've always been really fascinated by the Beat Generation. A lot of people romanticize them, which I just find really bizarre because they're just really crazy people and they had some good ideas. And I think some of them were genuinely good people, but they were actually insane and they were not people to be romanticized or idolized, and that just really weirds me out. But I'm very fascinated by them, especially Allen Ginsberg, who I just think is really interesting, and how is really Allen Ginsberg in a poem. Like he wrote this, background information. His therapist told him he should quit his job and just like do poetry, and then like then he was like, all right, that's gonna be me. So then he wrote this, and it's just kind of really raw and random, and the style changes throughout it because it was different periods that he wrote it, and it's just really Allen, and there are some really good parts to it and some really weird parts to it, and some parts that are like even like pretentious-ish, and some parts that are just like so beautiful and genius and raw, and like that's Allen. Like he was sort of a douchebag sometimes, and like some just kind of pretentious, but he also had some amazing ideas and views on the world, and he was just a really fascinating person, and I think that Howl really embodies that. um uh One of my favorite lines of anything ever is, I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness. Not This doesn't really have to do anything with Allen, which is mainly why I love the poem. But I love that line because I think it's so true. In just general, I think the best minds are always destroyed a little bit by madness, because the best people who see things, who understand things, understanding things is hard. Watching the world is hard, and seeing how crazy and bad it can be is really difficult. And I think that it destroys people a lot. It makes people a little mad, and I love that line because I always just think it's really true. But yeah, I love the poem because it's just so human. It's so Allen, and I love poems where you get the person behind it. You really get to see them, even if you don't know like context, if you don't know like background. But like when you finish a poem, I don't want to finish a poem and feel like I like relating to it, but more I want to understand the person, where they're coming from. That's when I read a poem. That's what I want, and that's how I always feel when I read Howl. Next thing I'm talk about is David Levithan. Yay! David Levithan generally writes prose, but he has a very poetry-esque style. We write in very kind of similar styles, I think, very like flowery sort of prose. I think he just writes beautifully. But his poetry, one of his like poetry, actual like legit poetry books, it's called The Realm of Possibility, and it's basically just all different stories. They're all in poetry form though, from different characters, and all their stories kind of intertwine together. And all of it personally I just love. But it's one part in particular that is my favorite part. And it sets, you can see text marking all over it, but it's text. It's just like little kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. Little short poems. There's actually a word for this. I'm blanking out right now. And the start is one of my favorite parts. It's character's name is Karen. And I'm just gonna read it to you. The whole thing. Okay. The whole thing is called How to Be Alone. Or not How to Be Alone, I'm sorry. It's called Unlonely. How to Be Alone. Remember that at any given moment, there are 1,000 things you can love. Plural. I had boyfriends non-stop since Greg Foster in 4th grade. I could only see myself through his eyes. The last breakup. Erased by sex, played the role badly. I was tired. What I love, 3 examples. Being myself, being by myself, flirting without consequences. What I learned. The well-documented difference between alone and lonely. The comfort of knowing. Respect. What I need, baby. I got it. I used to define myself by the enthusiasm of kisses. Their enthusiasm, not mine. Singular. I only had one priority. Then, now I don't count them. I call my friends instead. Talk about stupid, fun things. A cue from nature. Run outside during a thunderstorm. That downpour, that conquered hesitation, that exhilaration, that's what unlonely is like. The discovery. This is what my voice sounds like. I don't need to be talking to someone else to hear it. That last part is one of just my favorite things ever. I love that so much. This is what my voice sounds like. I don't need to be talking to someone else to hear it. I love this so much because it's so little, but it's so big, and I love Karen. Like that's like really what you get of Karen, and I just love it, and I just fall in love with her. And I don't get the sex thing. Like I haven't been there. I don't get that. I don't get the romantic part of that being used in that sort of way. But I get the used thing. I get feeling like other people define you, and other people's reactions to you define you. And I think everybody gets that, even if they haven't been where Karen is. But when you're reading it, like, this is the thing with me. A lot of people, like, their initial thing is, like, to relate to things. I always like to read things, and I just want to be focused on that person. I don't want to think about me. Yes, I've been there. Yes, I've been there, and yes, I can completely understand what especially the rain part, where she says that, like, that's unlonely because she understands herself and she understands what's around her, and you can never be lonely when you understand yourself and you understand what's around you, that you can't be lonely. I get that so much, and I get that last part, that if you understand yourself, that's all you need. That you don't need anybody else to understand you. When I read this, I don't think about me. I think about Karen. I think about Karen, and I don't think that what you did was bad. I don't care what you do, but it was obvious. I don't care what you do with your body, with the Howl, but, like, obviously that wasn't good for her. It wasn't good for her confidence, and I just love the story because it's so small. There's so much packed into it, and you fall in love with Karen, and, like, 12 lines. And I love that. I love that he could do that. That I can love Karen. That I remember Karen in this whole big book. I always remember Karen, and it's a poem that you can relate to. I think everyone really can relate to it. But I think that's irrelevant. I think that the best part of it is just how easy it is to fall in love with Karen. And I love poetry like that, where you fall in love with the person behind it. I don't care about relating to it, and symbolism is great. I love all that kind of shit. But I love poems where it's beautiful, but it's beautiful because there is a beautiful person behind it. Even if the beautiful person is fictional or whatever, there is a beautiful person behind it. And that's how I just think of, like, stories in general, how I fall in love with them. But I think that sometimes people separate prose and poetry in that way, where prose is there's like a person behind it, that characters you fall in love with, and poetry is just kind of meant to teach you something, or just like symbolism, blah blah blah. Where I don't think that. I think that both should be like that, and both should be about the persona, the character, whoever behind it, and understanding them and falling in love with them. And those are always the kind of poems that I really love. So, yeah, cool. Again, Realm of Possibility, if you want to check it out, it's awesome. Highly recommend it. Today was awesome because I'm wearing this really comfy sweater, and it's Free Pie Wednesday. It's supposed to be Tuesday, sorry, but it's Wednesday, and so free pie, so awesome, cool.